Hello, everyone. It's HBIC, the head bum in charge, with my top picks of bourbon for 2022. So, as some of you may have known, I have been fortunate to snag some pretty well allocated bottles of bourbon throughout 2022. So, I figured I'd give you guys my rankings here today. And I want to start off by saying that in this review, in this episode, I'm not doing any single barrel picks because those can be very subjective. Like if you have a Knob Creek pick from Binny's, it might be vastly different from the single barrel pick from Jewel. So we're not doing that. We're basically just doing new releases for 2022, or if it's a different blend, that kind of stuff. So you're not going to see Blanton's in here. You're not going to see Eagle Rare or some of the other stuff that's always the same every year. It comes out like Elmer T. Lee and that stuff. It has to be a different blend. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go with my honorable mentions. I have going to give you my top 10, but we got two here that I was really trying to get on the list, but just didn't make the cut. So number 12 is Bombergers by Michter's. First time we tried this was in Kentucky at Michter's Distillery, and we did it as a tasting, and I was able to come across this bottle. It is a very, very good bourbon, but if probably guess if Bombergers is number 12, there's going to be some good picks on this list. So Bombergers was number 12. Coming in at number 11, my honorable mention, is the Willet Purple Top. This is a Binny's Beverage Depot pick. 123 proof, age 7 years. Very, very good. I tried my hardest to get this on, but it just did not make the cut at the end. So with that, let's go into our top 10. Coming in at number 10 is the Lagavulin 2022 Offerman edition. It is at 92 proof. And I want to mention here, I'm not going to be going over all of the tasting notes with you like Baloney was on his 12 whiskeys of Christmas. I just say, hey, if it's good, it's good. I like it. It's an awesome bourbon. Everybody's palate is a little different, so I'm not going to do all the tasting notes. That will be for whiskey reviews with Peter stuff later down the road. So with this Offerman edition here for the Lagavulin, it's actually a Scotch. So we're starting off with not a bourbon. We're doing a Scotch. So last year's was finished in Guinness barrels, and that was Whiskey Advocate's Whiskey of the Year for 2022. I'm sorry, 2021. This year's is actually aged in charred oak barrels. So I think it's even better than last year's. You get the right amount of peatiness in it, so it's not super smoky, but it's not like a Macallan where you're going to get very, very low hints of peaty. But this is at an age at 11 years, coming in at number 10, very good for runner-up for the Whiskey of the Year for 2021. And it's an $80 bottle, so it's not too bad on that. All right. Number 9. Smoke Wagon Malted Rye. So this is coming in at 119.56 proof. It is actually the first release of this type for malted rye here. I believe this came out in July. I got mine in October. This is batch number 2C. And the one thing I can really say about this is that when Peter came over and tried this bottle, he immediately ran out and he bought it right the same day. So they are actually on batch number 6 now. It's limit 1 per customer at Binny's, and it is for $80. So I highly recommend that if you see this on the shelf at Binny's, pick it up. It is the maltiness just gives it this whole other flavor that I can't really explain on it, but for Smoke Wagon. I love Smoke Wagon, and it's a great pick. Okay, next up here. Okay, it's actually a double number 8. So it is from Heaven Hill. It is the C922s. So we got the Elijah Craig C922, and we got the Larceny C922. The Elijah Craig's coming in at 124.8 proof, and the Larceny's coming in at 126.6 proof. So these Heaven Hill barrel proof bottles, they're always must-have bottles. The Larceny was actually Breaking Bourbon's Whiskey of the Year for 2022. And with the Elijah Craig as well, over the summer, we actually did a tasting of all of the Elijah Craig barrel proofs, going from last year with the C921. We had the A122, the B521. I feel that this C922 is actually going to beat all of those. I think I have a couple more of these sitting in my closet, and the C922 is top notch right now. I'm interested to see once we compare this to what Peter has, and if there's some other picks out there. But this Elijah Craig, you can never go wrong with their barrel proof picks. This comes in at $70 at Benny's if you're able to find one, and the Larceny, I believe, is $50 or $60 if you're still come across it. And you probably still find this on the shelf eventually if you get lucky on that. All right, number 7. This was a bit of controversy because this number 7 slot was between this and the Willet Purple Top, and that is Michter's 10-year rye. It comes in at 92.8 proof, and you guys know we all love Michter's. Like we did our Christmas episode of 12 Days of Whiskey was with Michter's bourbons. And like I said, it was a tough one because I really wanted to it was really between this and the Purple Top, but the 10-year edged out. It's basically 10 years, charred white oak barrels. You can't go wrong with anything Michter's 10-year. And I believe this one runs between 150 and 180. I can't necessarily remember what I paid for it. But this one is coming in at number 7, Michter's 10-year rye. All right. Number 6 is actually another combo pick. It is Booker's 2022. Let's get the camera in here. Batches 02 and 03. So we have the Lumberyard and the Kentucky Tea batch. I've always been a fan of Booker's, but the Lumberyard and Kentucky Tea batches, they might be their best yet that I've had. They just did back-to-back bangers on this. The Lumberyard was aged slightly longer at 7 years. And this one, the Kentucky Tea, was also at 7 years. So some of the other Bookers I have are slightly under 7. They're on the 6-month cusp or 6-year cusp. But these two are both in the 7-year. And Lumberyard 124.8 proof. The Kentucky Tea 126.5 proof. Usually we add a drop of water to really open up the flavors and the aromas in some of these, because after it sits for a couple weeks, the profile for me with Bookers changes vastly. But that's just your preference. Some people like the heat, get that Kentucky hug going, but I just prefer having a little drop of water to get that extra flavor in there. And I just actually cracked the 04 batch, but it hasn't really opened up and breathed yet. So not really sure where that would fall in the rankings between these two, but back-to-back Booker's Lumberyard Kentucky Tea batches. If you're lucky enough to come across these still, they're $90. And the Lumberyard was also on Breaking Bourbon's top bourbons list this year. All right. We're in the top 5 now. Coming in number 5 might surprise some people. It's Bardstown Plantation. You guys know I love everything Bardstown, but this is their collaborative series here. Let's see, a little lighting issue right there. But I love everything about Bardstown. And we actually got a sample of this down in Kentucky when we were at Bardstown Distillery doing a tasting. It just got released, but it wasn't available yet to be on their tasting menu. So the guy who actually did our tasting gave us a little sample of it and absolutely loved it. As soon as we got back from Kentucky. I saw this pop up around Illinois and picked up a bottle right away. It's 10-year-old Dickel, and it's finished for 22 months in Plantation's Jamaican rum barrels. So you do get the sweetness of the rum in this bourbon. Whiskey Advocate also ranked this number 15 on their top 2022 list. And it also finished on Breaking Bourbon's top finished bourbons list. It's $180. You can still find this at Binny's. And if you haven't tried it, if you like rum and you don't mind a little sweeter bourbon, I do recommend this as a good buy. 104 proof. So Bardstown makes top 5. All right, number 4 on the list. Maker's Mark BRTO2. 109.4 proof. This is their wood finish series from Maker's Mark, and it's turned into a must buy every year. The FAE series was amazing, and this year's just topped it with the BRTO1 and the BRTO2. The 01 is higher. Their barrels are higher in the rickhouse, so it is a hotter bourbon, while 02 is lower in the rickhouse. The 01 was also done in American oak barrels, and the 02 was French oak. I personally prefer the BRTO2. I've seen some of my friends have 01 as their favorite as well. But this one for me has a little more chocolate in the palate, and it's a little sweeter than the 01. So for me, that made my number 4 pick. And their tasting notes on here actually say a dark expression filled with notes of fruit, nut, and chocolate. I haven't seen too many of these lying around because they came out around summertime or fall. But if I ever come across one, I'm buying like 5 bottles of this because it's an amazing bourbon, and it's for $70. It's probably one of the best value bourbons you can get as well. So good job on Makers for the BRT series this year. All right, top 3, and you can probably imagine we have some bangers coming out here now. So number 3, and we talked about this on the Christmas whiskey episode as well. Russell's 13, 114.8 proof. I actually got last year's and was lucky enough to get this year's as well. Me and Sarah, we both did a tasting of last year's and this year's, and we preferred last year's, coincidentally. However, when we first tried it, we did prefer 2022's. We went back and forth. We kept on trying and, going different orders, and it came out on top. Was last year's. But not to take anything away from this year's, Wild Turkey nailed their second release of this. And it did get a little more pricier. It is $130 now. Last year's, I believe, was around $100. So increase of $30 ain't too bad. But this one was one of the most sought after bourbons of 2022. A very limited supply. A lot of tatering going around for this one, but was lucky enough to find this, and can't wait to see what 2023's 13-year brings. All right, number 2. This might surprise some people, and this might be my controversial pick, but it is Midwinter's Dram, Act 10, Scene 4, 98.6 proof. So there's a little story behind this. I almost didn't keep this bottle. I had last year's, and I was not a fan of it at all. It was okay. It didn't blow me away for the amount of hype that people were giving this. And then I heard they doubled the price on this to $160. And I was pissed. It was $90 last year, and they upped it to $160. And a lot of bourbon fans, got turned off by this. A lot of people passed on it. But I grabbed it anyways, and I hope to flip it for a nice profit. I don't usually flip bourbons. I usually crack everything I own. I should say I always crack everything I own. But I hope to flip this for a nice profit, just mostly because I was pissed about the cost. But I didn't find any takers for this bottle, and I decided to keep it, and I cracked it open, and I'm so happy I kept this. This is night and day compared to last year's. Whatever they did this year, they need to keep doing it in the future. This year's is actually blended straight rye in port barrels. Last year's was the French oaks barrels, so obviously the barrel's going to make a big difference, but the port, I guess, is where it's at. If you can still find this, I recommend purchasing it. It came out end of September, I believe it was. But it's, if you had last year's 9, it's, trust me, it's much better than 9s. And finally, number 1 whiskey of the year for me, and that is Wild Turkey Master's Keep. A little lighting issue there. Master's Keep, the Unforgotten. There we go, right there. 105 proof. I almost didn't get this bottle. I asked about it. I had my people saying, "Hey, I'm very interested in the Master's Keep. If you can get me one." They said they only got 2 of these bottles in when it came out, and they were spoken for. So I was very disappointed. But as all things go, little luck was on my side. I went in a week later, and it was actually the same time I went to go purchase the Midwinter's Dram. They actually offered me the Master's Keep. It's like, "Hey, do you want a Master's Keep?" I was like, "Hell yeah, I do." So maybe someone passed on it, price point, I don't know, or they got an extra one in stock. But either way, I was offered one, and I was very fortunate to actually get this because it is my favorite whiskey bourbon of 2022. It's a bourbon rye blend, and they finish it in rye casks. It's 13-year bourbon, and it's 8 and 9-year rye. It's absolutely perfect. I really can't say much more about it. It's just the perfect blend of aged whiskeys coming together in perfect harmony, and I can't say enough good things about this one. So this is my 2022 whiskey bourbon of the year. Now, I will say there are some on here that maybe you might disagree with, but hey, it's my list. So go get your own allocated bourbon list. But there are also some that I did not get to try this year, unfortunately. I did not get lucky enough to get the Four Roses limited edition or the Parker's release that came here, or the Old Fitzgerald 19. There's only so much bourbon that can go around. So I did miss out on some. The Michter's 20-year was retailing at Binny's for $10,000. So obviously that was going to be a no-go for me. But hoping that next year, well, now 2023, I can actually get some of the good releases in the beginning of the year as well. And next year I will maybe have a top 20 list. Who knows? But that ends my top 20 or my top 10 rankings of bourbons for 2022. I guys hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. And also we will be doing whiskey reviews throughout the year on our YouTube channel with Peter, because he'll be doing the more sophisticated palate, nose, all his fancy stuff. And I'll just drink it and say, damn, that's good. So keep an eye out for that coming up in the winter and in the spring. And also, if you're listening same day as well, make sure you enter our contest for the bottle of Blanton's. If you buy our new Bourbon Bum shirt, and you're automatically entered to win a contest. It runs all through January. We're going to announce the winner on February 1st. If you buy any other Bum merch gear with our Bourbon Bum shirt, you'll get an extra entry. So we're going to try to share some Blantons with people. But guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed my list, and look forward to hearing your comments about this. And if I had any controversial picks that you might disagree with, but I'm curious to see what you guys would rank in your top 10 as well for the year. So with that, thank you so much, and we'll catch you later on.